What if one of Hollywood's golden boys had a secret that could have ended his career overnight? Troy Donahue, the dreamy heartthrob of the 1950s and 60s, wasn't just hiding heartbreak. He was hiding truth. In a time when being yourself could cost you everything, Donahue risked it all for love. Now, decades later, his confession stuns the world. He secretly dated 3 famous actors, all icons of old Hollywood. Who were they? And why did it stay hidden for so long? Stick around. This story changes everything you thought you knew. He wasn't born Troy. He entered the world as Merl Johnson Jr. on January 27, 1936, in New York City, during the lingering chill of the Great Depression. His childhood was comfortable. His father was a corporate executive. His mother, an elegant former actress, gave him his first taste of performance. From a young age, Troy was drawn to the stage, the screen, the promise of becoming someone bigger. Though he studied journalism at Columbia University, the pull of California's sunlit promise soon proved irresistible. Like many dreamers before him, he packed his bags and headed west. In the late 1950s, Warner Brothers signed him and gave him more than just a contract. They gave him a name: Troy Donahue. Romantic, rugged, marketable. And just like that, Merl was gone. His breakout came in 1959 in the tearjerker A Summer Place, opposite the radiant Sandra Dee. It was more than a film. It was a cultural moment. The haunting theme song, the forbidden young love, the generational tension, audiences couldn't get enough. And at the center of it all was Donahue. Blonde, soft-spoken. The kind of boy every girl wanted and every boy wanted to be. From there, the roles came fast. He starred in Parish, 1961, Susan Slade, 1961, Rome Adventure, 1962, and Palm Springs Weekend, 1963. These romantic dramas, often set in scenic locations, painted him as the ideal American young man. He became the face of a generation, appearing on the covers of Photoplay, Teen Beat, and dozens of teen magazines. At his peak, he received more fan mail than any actor on the Warner Brothers lot. But times change, and Hollywood changes faster. As the 1960s turned toward rebellion, war, and realism, Donahue's wholesome image began to feel out of step. The studio system that built him suddenly left him behind. Offers dried up. The world wanted edgy anti-heroes, not beach blonde romantics. Behind the scenes, Troy was battling personal demons. Alcoholism crept into his life, along with financial troubles. By the 1970s, the one-time heartthrob was sometimes homeless, living out of his car. But instead of hiding, Troy spoke openly about his fall. He found strength in Alcoholics Anonymous, where he said, "I could finally tell the truth." And it's what he shared later in life that truly shocked fans and historians alike. In private interviews during the 1990s and in a posthumously discovered journal, Troy Donahue revealed a deeply hidden part of his life: his secret relationships with other men during his early years in Hollywood. In an era where such revelations could destroy a career, Donahue had kept these romances locked away for decades. The first name he shared was Anthony Perkins, the complex and talented actor known for his iconic role in Psycho. Troy recalled meeting Perkins at a party in the late 1950s. "He had this quiet sadness," Troy said. "We connected instantly, but we knew we could never be public." The two would meet in secret, often driving to Malibu, sitting in silence, watching the waves crash. "We had to pretend, always pretend," he admitted. Both were under studio contracts, both were matinee idols, and both were terrified of losing everything. The second name he whispered? Rock Hudson. Towering, masculine, the very definition of the ideal man in mid-century America. Hudson wasn't just a star, he was a myth, but Troy saw behind the myth. "There were moments," he said, "just brief moments. We shared something unspoken, something real." Donahue didn't call it a relationship, not in the way most people understood, but what they had was rooted in mutual fear and deep emotional resonance. "Rock Hudson had it harder than most," Troy said. "If he slipped, the entire illusion would collapse." These weren't tabloid confessions. They were honest memories from a man who had been forced to live two lives. Donahue's later revelations weren't betrayals. They were acts of healing. He wasn't naming names for attention. He was honoring truth, dignity, and love that was denied the light. As for his more public relationships, Troy's love life was just as turbulent. He married 4 times, each union marked by brief passion and long shadows. His first marriage was to Suzanne Plachette, who would later become famous for her role on The Bob Newhart Show. They met while filming Rome Adventure and married in 1964. But the fairy tale ended quickly. They divorced within 9 months. Before that, he had been engaged to model and actress Lily Cardell, a relationship that ended in scandal when she accused him of abuse and took him to court. Though no conviction followed, the incident deeply tarnished his image. In 1966, he married actress Valerie Allen. This marriage, too, ended in divorce after just 2 years. Donahue's struggles with alcohol and anger often made headlines and made intimacy nearly impossible. By 1969, he had married Alma Sharp, an executive secretary far removed from the chaos of Hollywood. This union, away from the spotlight, showed promise. But addiction followed him. They divorced in 1972. His fourth and final marriage was to Vicki Taylor in 1979, a time when Troy had already become more reclusive. They divorced in 1981. All 4 marriages followed a familiar pattern: brief connection, emotional distance, and eventual collapse. But his story didn't end in sadness. In the twilight of his life, Troy Donahue found companionship with Jung Chao, a gifted Chinese-American mezzo-soprano opera singer. They were never legally married, but friends say she brought him peace and unconditional love. With Jung, he didn't have to perform, he could simply be. And just when it seemed his life had found its quiet resolution, fate offered one more surprise. In the late 1990s, Troy discovered he had a son, Sean, from a brief relationship in 1969. For decades, he hadn't known the boy existed. Their reunion was deeply emotional. It gave him a sense of legacy, a friend recalled. Something real, something lasting. Then came the end. On August 30th, 2001, while at his Santa Monica apartment, Troy Donahue suffered a massive heart attack. He was rushed to St. John's Health Center, underwent emergency angioplasty, and briefly showed signs of recovery. But hours later, a second, more devastating heart attack struck. Doctors performed coronary bypass surgery on September 1st, but it was too late. Troy Donahue passed away on September 2nd, 2001, at the age of 65, surrounded by those who loved him. His death didn't make front-page headlines, but for fans, especially those who had grown up with A Summer Place or sighed at his charm in Palm Springs Weekend, it was the quiet close of an unforgettable chapter. In his later years, Troy Donahue became a familiar face at nostalgia conventions and classic film festivals. Fans, now older, brought scrapbooks and tears. They didn't just remember the actor, they remembered how he made them feel. And now, with his full story told, they saw something more. A man who had survived fame, addiction, heartbreak, and fear. "I'm not ashamed of who I loved," he once said. "I just wish I had been allowed to love them in the open." Troy Donahue's story goes far beyond fame. He faced the spotlight, the silence, and his own struggles with courage. In the end, He gave us more than movies. He gave us truth. If his journey moved you, like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories from Hollywood's hidden past. Thanks for watching.